Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of Running Reunion. I am really excited that you are here. And if this is your first time listening, Running Reunion are short mini episodes where we are focused on previous guests who have come on the show. We're looking at what they've done since they were last on the episode. And it's just meant to be a feel-good way of checking back in with people and also seeing that every journey is the way it was meant to be, that we have highs, that we have lows, that we have something to smile about every time every time something happens, every time something changes. So today I am very excited to welcome a dear friend of mine, Sanjay Rawal, who is a producer, director. He has made the movie Gather and 3100. These are both fantastic movies that I definitely recommend you go check out if you have not already. You're going to hear there's so much wisdom in this episode. And so let's get right to it. Thank you to Sanjay. Thank you to UCAN for sponsoring this episode of Running Reunion for the Running for Real podcast. I am proud and excited to have been working with UCAN since 2012. It is my favorite go-to fuel and source. I have been using it in races for many years, and I was very excited last year when they came out with UCAN Edge. Now, it's not just me who loves UCAN Edge. UCAN Edge was voted by Runner's World as one of the best foods to eat during a run. It has these slower acting carbs that are easier to digest and will keep your blood sugar levels stable. Now, UCAN Edge comes in strawberry, banana, and orange flavors. It's this in this convenient portable pouch that is going to put super starch in your hand. It is what I'm going to be using in all my races upcoming. It has this delicious fruit flavor. It goes down really easy. It's really easy to enjoy, and it's going to mean you have no spikes, no crash. It's also trusted by the pros like Sarah Hall and Emma Bates. Emily Sisson all use UCAN for their races. So thank you again to UCAN for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. You can use code TINAUCAN. That's Tina UCAN at ucan.co to go get yourself 20% off there. That's code Tina UCAN at ucan.co. Sanjay, my dear friend, welcome back to the Running for Real podcast for this Running Reunion episode. I'm excited you are here.
Me too. So much has happened since the last time we got to record together.
It has, yeah. Well, actually, on that note, so I looked up when I last had you on here. It was December 2019. So it was right before everything flipped upside down. That was the last time I aired this episode. That was when I aired this episode. And to start people off, if they weren't listeners back in 2019, as that's, was that a year and... Oh, I'm so bad at math. So
it's 2 years.
2020 would be 1 year, 21 would be 2 years, just over 2 years. If someone hasn't been listening all that time, what would you like to tell them? Who are you and where does your passion lie?
Well, I'm the quintessential jack of all trades, master of none. I've had kind of a circuitous... I've had a circuitous life. You know, the direction hasn't been linear, let's say. I'm not saying ups and downs, but it's like my life has been like untangling a ball of yarn. And every time you get another little knot out, it's like easy sailing. And it's so much fun until you realize that, oh my goodness, there's another problem that will require some time to work itself out and get through. So in the last 10 years or so, I guess I fancied myself as a documentary filmmaker. I was a runner when I was in my teens and early 20s. I was, not too uncompetitive, not competitive enough to have had like any Wikipedia or internet history. But I made a movie on running in 2018 called 3100, Run and Become. Before that, I'd made mainly human rights documentaries. And that movie, 3100, was about the world's longest running race. Of course, you've had one of the only women finishers of that race on your show, Harita Davies. But in order to show how and why that particular race, where people have to run for 52 days straight, is possible, I went back into the traditions of humanity. In particular, a focus on a Navajo runner, a Kalahari Bushman from Botswana, and a monk in Japan who each use ultra distance running as a way not just to become better people, but to basically get in touch with their highest selves.
And it is so beautifully done. One of my favorite things I've seen, well, definitely my favorite thing I've seen anything to do with running. I think everyone watching, if you haven't already, will find it so powerful, and I loved it. And quickly tell us about your other movie. You had some exciting updates about that just a few months ago.
The 3100 Run and Become is on Amazon Prime around the world. And I just finished a movie just before all the lockdowns in my hometown of Queens, New York City started. A movie called Gather about Native American food systems and really resilience. Yeah. People who value their relationship with the land, whose people have had histories with particular pieces of land or areas of the world, in their words, since time immemorial, and what it means like to be a steward rather than a consumer. And we looked at this concept of food systems, indigenous food systems, through the eyes of a chef, an Apache chef from Arizona. That movie's called Gather. We had an executive producer whose name many people might know, Jason Momoa, and the film is on Netflix in the US and Canada. So I got a chance to share that movie mainly through a lot of Zoom Q&As the last couple of years. I think we chalked up about 500 or 600 Zoom panels. So it kept me busy. And, apart from that, I used my time to really find a sense of identity through a daily practice of running again.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And I also saw Gather and loved it before it was on Netflix. Although now I'm glad you said it's in the US and Canada, because I was trying to get my parents to find it and they couldn't. And I was like, it's not that hard. And maybe now that's why, because it's not
it's on iTunes. I think it's on iTunes and Google Play and Amazon downloads in the UK and parts of Europe.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'll have to apologize to them for for being like, why can't you figure this out? Okay. Beyond that, I want to ask you, as we talked before we talked, you've said about your ball of yarn, which you're untangling. We've also had a pretty rough year for a few years for humanity. But in terms of you, Sanjay, how are you really?
So I live in an area of New York City that was probably the first epicenter of COVID-19 in the US. I live in Jamaica Hills, Queens. And I have a little tiny natural food store around the corner from me. It's a pretty suburban neighborhood, even for New York City. So, it's a kind of modest area, but there's one little tiny store that has vitamins and herbs and organic food. And they had given me my first job back when I was 21 years old and a fresh transplant from California to New York. I walked in one day to do my weekly shopping and the place was packed. And I kind of got recruited, or I allowed myself to get recruited to volunteer there again. And, basically almost every single day that I've been in New York City since then, for 2 to 4 hours, I'm in there. And I don't have a family in New York City. I'm single. And being able to be in that store and connect with the community and all share that experience of suffering brought me a lot of joy. I mean, we talked about on our previous podcast how exertion and work has joy deeply embedded into it. There was a Hopi elder from a tribe in central Arizona named Rex Taliamtewa. I was on a prayer run with a bunch of Native American kids. We were going from Flagstaff all the way to the Bears Ears Monument, about 300 miles, a relay. Nobody was doing any serious, ultra distance running. Mm-hmm. And Rex told us one morning that the point of running and life is to find the joy in the exertion. There are varying levels of exertion in life. You either work minimally or work super hard. We tend to look at those hard efforts as maybe painful, strenuous. But the fact that Rex said, in the middle of all of that exertion, there is a little pocket of joy, totally upended the way I look at physical exertion, at running, and really at life. So in this example of, being with people who were in a lot of pain, there is something that united us. And that act of unification had the emotion of joy. Like we were all in the trenches together, and there was something special about that. And Rex used the word joy, and that's the word I used. So in that sense, amidst all of the tragedy and the suffering, I was able to get joy by being of service. I mean, it's ridiculous for me to think I was a frontline worker, but like I was a cashier at a little tiny grocery store. Mm-hmm. So, like I felt like I was able to carry a little bit of weight, and that gave me a lot of joy.
I think that's so important to mention, especially because there's so much trauma in our world right now and so much pain, and it's easy to get swallowed up in it and feel hopeless and helpless and we're never going to work our way out of this. But the only way we can work our way out of this is by finding, like you said, those little pockets of joy that then give us the strength to keep working towards, or I don't even want to say fighting for, but like doing the work that we need to do, that we as individuals need to be doing. And for you, that's such a good example, like a tiny little store that is offering good, nourishing, loving food that gives people the energy to then do what they're doing. I mean, that's a perfect example, right, of just this circle and cycle and how we're all interconnected to each other. That's a beautiful example. So thank you for sharing that.
In India, there's a word called Leela, which means cosmic play. It doesn't quite mean that life is a game. It doesn't minimize the seriousness, the realities, the suffering, but it puts into perspective the fact that there have been various levels of human society for hundreds of thousands of years. And there's always been suffering. There's always been trauma. But these days, there's far less isolation. On the negative side, little things that happen, in little places in the world can have very, very drastic effects for the rest of us. But at the same time, if we believe that the purpose of life is to discover oneness with the universe, this decrease in isolation can't be viewed as a negative thing. And so in that sense, it's like there's been and there will continue to be a stream of progress. It's almost like finding a silver lining, although it's not really that. It's not like there's happiness in all of this suffering, but we can see that we're not on a march backward as a global society. If we step back, with a 50,000 foot view, that there's always hope, that there's always progress. Amidst that suffering, amidst that trauma, we have to do a lot of work. This is not like an amusement park ride by any means. But that perspective of life being a cosmic game, I think helps me to realize that, I'm insignificant in all of this. Each individual is insignificant. We're like grains of sand on a beach.
Yeah.
But together, there's a collectiveness. And if we can each do our little tiny part, that collective feeling gives hope. That collective feeling gives an indication that we truly are moving forward.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. That's so powerful. I really, I needed to hear that, let alone, I don't know what everyone else is thinking, but I'm sure, that spoke to them too. So thank you. What is something that made you smile today?
I did a 19.2 mile run yesterday. In a place that I really love on Long Island. There are roads, but it's kind of in a super fancy neighborhood. And, fancy enough that the roads are perfect because people have very, very fancy cars, but the homes are big. There's lots of trees. And I made such a good effort. And I woke up this morning feeling super good. And I told myself I could have a day off. And that day off for me meant like going to the gym and doing all the fun stuff that, if you do an hour-long run, a 90-minute run, like doing ab work and hip work and lifting weights is not really that fun for me. It more feels like a chore. But today I was just able to go into the gym, put the headphones on, listen to a playlist, and go through all the super fun exercises that I'm usually kind of too sore to do. So It was great.
Cool.
And then I treated myself with a hot chocolate.
I think that sounds like a great start to a week. I love that. Thank you. Okay, what is a high moment over the last, since December 2019 that you would like to share with us?
Oh, I think there've been a ton. You know, I was really fortunate that we released Gather in September 2020 at a time when obviously movie theaters were totally closed, and people were desperate for a sense of community. And so we were able to do a lot of online screenings through these platforms that kind of force people to all sit down in front of their computers at the same time, watch the movie together, and then do a lot of panels with our cast members. And our cast members live, well off the beaten path in rural America. They live on big rivers, they live in deserts, they live up in mountains. And we were able to connect their incredible work and their incredible histories to folks that were struggling and suffering in cities and, dealing with the normal hubbub of the trauma of COVID and living in large communities. Yeah. So I just had a great experience connecting with thousands of folks, through these Zoom Q&As that I don't think I ever would have been able to. So for me, number one, the high moment was the reality that most of my family got through this without any hitches. Number two, my community here in New York City has kind of pulled itself together. And number three, a lot of folks I know and run with never stopped running. So, we're all in a position now that I think we've come through the storm where we can look back and go, these are the 15 things that 15 ways that I made progress. These are the 3 or 4 things I still need to work on, but these are the 15 things I can count in terms of, my own achievements. I ran a good marathon at the California International Marathon that December of 2019. Ran a bunch of good 5Ks on the track with Tracksmith in New York City last summer, and got to experience the community and the running community. So it's been a lot of little points of light or joy,
which is what we want, right? We don't want to just live our lives for those high moments that you build up to so much expectation. They either do or don't hit your expectations, and then you're waiting for the next one. What you're building here is what we want. So thank you for sharing that. Maybe I should reword that question.
Well, I had swings and misses. Like I thought I was in really good shape to run CIM again last December, and got really sick 2 weeks out. And I was like, okay, this is when I get COVID. But it wasn't even COVID. It was like a regular flu. So that sucked.
Yeah.
And then I thought I'd regroup for the Houston Marathon in January. And the morning real field temperature was 24 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about -3, -4 Celsius. And I was out there in a singlet and shorts thinking I'd be running so hard that I'd generate a lot of heat. And that didn't happen. So at mile 12, I basically effectively kicked the bucket on that race. So I've had my shares of low points, and they've given me opportunities again to reflect and go, like, what did I actually learn from that? Is there some lesson in there?
Yes. I love that approach. And that's very much what I try to do. Not always easy, but worth it if we can pull that. Okay. One final thing. What would you like to remind everyone listening to this today? What could have been that, I suppose.
Well, it goes back to 3100 Run and Become. Our main Navajo character, Sean Martin, kind of explained that when Navajo people run, they're praying with their feet. They're praying to Mother Earth with their feet. They're breathing in Father Sky. They're asking them for their blessings, and they're showing them that they're willing to work for those blessings. And Sean continued and said that when you make a connection through your feet, through your breath, you not only become a champion, you become a warrior. And Sean's dad, out of the movie, reminded me that Mother Earth is also under the sidewalk. Mother Earth is under the asphalt. It's not just a reality that exists out in some gorgeous desert canyon somewhere in Arizona or up at a mountain range or, in the Himalayas, etc., that every time we go out and we run or we jog or we walk, we're connecting ourselves to a higher breath. And if you try to be conscious of that, I found that most people, regardless of their ethnic or religious background, can really feel a sense of union with Mother Nature through their feet. So I would just like to remind people that we've got the biggest blessing in the world to be able to go outdoors, regardless of our capacity, to take a few moments on our own, to take a deep breath, to connect to the sky, to connect to the earth, and feel not only what that means to us, but to really every other human being that's out there on earth today.
So powerful. Thank you so much, Sanjay. Where can people go find you? We've mentioned Gather. We've mentioned 3100 Run and Become. Where else can people go to find you in the future?
They can come to Guru Health Foods in Jamaica, Queens.
I will be. I can tell you that right now. That's been put on my mental list. One day I'm just going to pop in and be like, hi, can I buy some tomatoes? And you'll be like, do I know you?
Buy tomatoes. The least thing I can do is give you a tomato for all of your journeys.
Well, thank you. I'll look forward to my tomato.
People can physically find me there, or I guess on Instagram, I'm at Mr. Sanjay R. And that's pretty much it. I'm easy to find offline. I'm maybe harder to find online.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate you, all that you give, all that you do, and just that light you are in this world. Thank you, my friend. And I appreciate you.
You're too kind, Tina. Can't wait to see you in real life.
Hi, friends. Just a quick message to say a big thank you to the Running for Real team. While I may be the face of Running for Real and the voice behind the podcast, there are a group of people who are working tirelessly to provide everything that runners could need within our community to make our community stronger, better, and evolve and grow and learn from one another. We are working really hard to make Running for Real the place we believe it can be within our community. I just want to take a moment to thank everyone on our team. That is Victoria, Stacy, Sandy, Sally, Maria, Kelsey, Kat, Jeremy, and Erica. I appreciate each and every one of you and the hard work that you put in. Now let's get back to the show.
So much wisdom in there and good reminders and things for us to take with us on these episodes, in our day-to-day life from these episodes, but particularly from that one. Thank you to Sanjay. Really appreciate him for all that he shares with us. Friends, remember to go check out UCAN. You can go to ucan.co and use code TINAUCAN. And I will be definitely using a lot of it myself over this month when I'm doing 2 marathons. And we'll be using UCAN Edge in both of those, as well as the recovery bars and powder within my training day to day. So go to ucan.co and use code TINAUCAN for that. Thank you so much for listening, my friends. We'll have a regular episode for you on Friday, another Together Run on Monday, and another one of these running reunions next week. I'll see you then.